Hey, let's talk about games. Hello again, my friend. Welcome back to another video talking about Warhammer Chaosbane. Now, this video is going to be a chance to go into a little bit more depth and a little bit more discussion for what the developers are trying to tell us with some of their design choices for this game. Now, there's going to be a lot of guesswork going on here, but I do have a PDF with a good bit of information as to what will be included in the game and what will be possible and some general sort of outlines. So what I want to do is basically go through some of these choices and really try and delve into what this game is going to bring to the table. So, straight up, I think it's very worth saying that this game introduces and, well, sticks to a lot of very traditional ARPG mechanics. It has a drop-in, drop-out feature, which is something that is welcome within almost every game. Your mate goes off for tea, he can drop out, another mate's come online, he can drop in at any point during a dungeon. There's no need to restart, there's no instance-based sort of mechanic or mission-based mechanic. It's very, very free-floating and very, very fluid. I think fluid is probably a good word for many of the mechanical choices I've seen within this. So straight away, a very socially sort of active system where it's going to be very easy for players to jump in and out of other people's sessions. In theory, that's going to make it a lot easier for matchmaking and things of that nature. If at any point someone can come in and join you or leave, that is a very nice thing to see. So moving on from this within the sort of the social decisions, we also have an AFK auto walk feature. So what this means is you can have your player set to follow your party when you go into the inventory screen within a co-op game. So if you guys are all playing on your split screen, sorry, not your split screen, your shared screen, you've got 4 people on a console all playing together, having a bash, and one of you brings up your little item window, what will happen is you'll get a little mini screen on your corner, and while you're playing around with gear and doing stuff, your character will follow your allies around. Now, this sounds like a fairly trivial feature, but it's really nice that they thought of something to tackle the sort of fluidity issue when someone pauses to look at gear, especially on sort of the couch co-op side of things. Now, I'm not sure if this will apply to online play where you're not sharing a screen, but I would maybe hope that it does in a sense. Who knows? But it's a really nice feature. It's something I've seen in many games before, but it just shows how they're trying to keep everything fluid and trying to keep all the players just enjoying an experience together. Now, as well as this, we also have the ability to share local play and online play. So we can also have even 2 players on the same PC playing together, sharing a screen, playing with 2 people on another PC, sharing a screen together. So that, I think, is a really, really big thing. And obviously, it's not going to be a big thing for everyone. If you play on your own, on your PC, and you don't have anyone else coming over that's going to play games with you, fair enough. It might not be a big deal to you, but for some people, for a portion of the community, this is groundbreaking and this is earth-shattering. Couch co-op games are actually quite hard to find, really, really decent ones. And there are some out there, there are some decent ones, but I think this is something for some people. You're going to get your mates over, you're going to play this, you're going to have yourself a blast, assuming the game is good, of course. Obviously, we don't know that yet, but again, I'm fairly happy with what I've seen thus far. But I think back to Diablo 3 on console, which also had this feature, and it was the only game I've ever played with the girlfriend, and I think we played it for about 6 hours straight, which is pretty unheard of for her. And she kept dying, I kept trying to save her, but it was a really memorable experience, and it's very safe to say that that has biased my view of the game ever since. I've always felt that the console version was simply better than the PC. I found it more fun and more enjoyable when I think back. One of the main reasons as to why is likely the situations I got to play it in. I do think it will be a positive for this game, and I do think it will be something that this game brings to the table that other games may not. This game's going to be competing against Wolcen, Diablo 4 potentially next year, so there's going to be some big ARPGs out there. What's this going to bring to the table? Well, it's not going to bring like a several billion-dollar investment. It's a small company, but they may have features like this which really make the game stand out a little bit and make it a little bit more special. So from game design thus far, in terms of sort of sociability and networking, it all seems very, very fluid and all very geared up to allow people to play and enjoy each other's company. In terms of the classes, I feel that this is continued. Let me go into a little bit of detail. So we've got a melee damage DPS, which is the Dwarf Slayer. We have the melee tank, which is the Empire Soldier. You have a ranged casting mage, which is going to be a high elf, and then you have the Wood Elf, which is more trap, utility and poison. So very, very clear stereotypes. And what has been described is each one of these will have access to some different status effects and elements, etc., which you can apply, and the classes will complement each other. Now, you don't have to play one of each. You guys are probably thinking, oh man, what if someone else picks the dwarf and I only want to be a dwarf? You can all be a dwarf if you want. Apparently, though, that there will be not consequences, but you will lose access to such an array of buffs and debuffs, etc., that it might make your gameplay a little bit harder. I don't know how much, we don't know the numbers, but it's nice to see that the option is there if you want to have 2 tanks. That's really cool. Or if you want to just, for a laugh, play as 4 Wood Elves and see what happens. But I also really like the idea that they can complement each other, and it encourages people to maybe think, okay, well, our group could do with a bit of this, so I'll go a bit of that. I like the idea of it sort of making groups think as to what will complement them a bit more, having a role within combat as well. So it does hint within this document that some of the boss fights will contain moments where some characters will be able to do something that others can't. Again, I don't really know any more details, but having the ability to contribute stuff like that, it's something that some games have certainly done very, very well, and makes you feel very, very useful when you do that thing that your party really needed you to do, and it prevents all your damage from, being taken, and it is just a wonderful feeling. So I'm very, very excited about this. I really feel the game is moving in a sort of a little bit of an arcadey direction, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean arcadey as in it's just going to be great to play with other people. Looking at the actual combat, the way the characters move around, especially the Empire unit in particular, doing all these knockbacks, knocking people away from the mage when some of the rooms get a little bit over encumbered with enemies. I really, really like how this is looking, because it looks like a system which is basically quite traditional. It reminds me a little bit of some of the very old sort of classic token RPG or top-down games of years gone past, where you would have these very stereotyped characters that would each have a specific ability that they could use, and you're all shouting to your mates across on the sofa that I need you to use this ability, and I need you to use that one. And when things synergize well, it just works beautifully. And this is maybe a different vibe of game. That's something that many ARPG players will perhaps be used to. And that's why I use the term arcade, is I get the impression that this is going to be something very satisfying to play with other people, and a very different vibe to perhaps, say, something of the Diablo series, which is probably going to be, well, just a bunch of classes, highly specialised, or the style of Diablo is often sort of every man for himself, or you've got sort of this I'll group the enemies up and you nuke them, or I'll run in and be invulnerable to damage and you nuke them from there, and it's all very, I don't know, a little bit too meta and efficient. I like the idea of having these stereotypes in a way that each have their very clear things that they can contribute, even if it is a little bit predefined and a little bit perhaps a little bit forced on the players. I think it's something that can work really well when you're looking to make a really sort of social game. At least that's the angle I'm taking on it for now. Now, aside from this, I think one slight maybe drawback to this, and then maybe it's not a drawback, is that each of the classes do fit within a very clear stereotype. So we have basically the range rogue, the melee rogue, the range caster, and a melee tank, and that's sort of your 4 archetypes as such. It is perhaps a little bit of a shame that the dwarf hasn't also got the option of being an Ironbreaker or a ranged character too. It's very nice the way that Vermintide 2 has done this and created, unique feeling classes with different abilities and different options. However, I can see it becoming perhaps a little bit too overly complicated and a little bit too cumbersome if you introduce that into an ARPG system where you've also got 45 different character skills. So maybe the Slayer can become tanky, and maybe the Slayer can throw some axes, who knows, but it does seem that each class is going to have its own little stereotype. Maybe it's something in future where each of the classes will get some additional things added to them. I'm not entirely sure, but it doesn't look like a direction the developers are going to go in. You're going to have these 4 heroes as such, sort of predefined, but obviously the big question now is, how does the skill selection system work? What does it do? How does the god system work? Because there's also a means of providing offerings to a god in particular, using like a I don't know, an affiliation of sorts, and that will determine your super ability or some special ability. So there's going to be some fair customization here, but really we don't know how much depth there's going to be. We also don't know for gear, but for me this is looking pretty good. I think the design choices for me right now are really pointing the game in the direction of actually away from some of the other major ARPGs of the times, and I think anyone that's probably looking at this thinking, yeah, Diablo 4 is going to be better than this, I think in a way this game isn't thinking, right, how can we be better than Diablo? I'm sure that's not what the developers are saying, right, okay, we've got to make something that's similar to Diablo or no one will ever like us. This game looks to me like it's going to have a different direction. It looks like it's got different aims and different ambitions and a different vibe you'll get from playing it. And whether that's successful or not, I don't know, but I would say the developers have made 2 ARPGs thus far. They're not really ARPGs, they're sort of top-down survival games, but they were very, very popular because they brought something different to the table. And I have a feeling that these developers are going to be doing that to the ARPG genre. They're not going to be using crazy, wacky mechanics. They're going to make something very standard and very straightforward. We can see that already with their design choices. But I think that this game is not even going to be a contender with Diablo 3, Path of Exile, Diablo 4 even, or Wolcen. I think it's just simply going to be doing its own thing. In a way, and in sense then maybe it would be a contender, but you guys hopefully know what I mean. So let me know down in the comments what you'd love to know about this game. I'll be trying to hassle developers for an interview. There won't be one too soon. The game's coming out Q1 2019, so it's still a fair old way to go, but really excited for it, really looking forward to more information. Can't wait to jump into it. Guys, have yourself a great week. I'll speak to you soon.